So let's get to Looking Good Out There by Indochino and talk about two guys who were definitely looking good out there in this game. Yeah. The reason that the Chiefs could play 60% man coverage against a team that has Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk is that the two outside corners, the number one and number two corners for this Chiefs team, L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie, played out of their minds in this game. When I went back and watched, anecdotally, you're watching the game, and two things we mentioned in our initial recap were it seemed like they were playing more man, and then you saw the numbers like, holy shit, they're playing a lot more man. And then it seemed like McDuffie and Sneed were playing at an insane level. And then I went back and watched, and it was even better than I remembered. Every single time these guys were put in a man coverage situation, they were just gloving people up. There was a play on right before the Niners kicked the field goal in the first half. That deep shot they took to Deebo down the left sideline. On that play, Sneed puts Ayuk in the ground. He puts him in the ground with an initial jam, and then McDuffie is following Deebo step for step down the left sideline for that PBU. There were multiple in-breakers to Deebo that they tried to hit on third down or late in series.
They're playing two-man. I remember that one.
Two-man. McDuffie's just with him step for step. There was another play where Sneed is with him step for step on an in-breaker. And McDuffie obviously had one of the plays of the game on that unblocked pressure on 3rd and 4, which we could talk about. Yeah. But the play before that, he's in man coverage on Kittle. He gets sucked up by the play action fake, but gets back to Kittle in the flat and makes a tackle for no gain on second down to force that 3rd and 4. There were so many moments from both of those guys in this game that you noticed, but there were just as many where you wouldn't have noticed how good they are. So this game plan is only possible because of what those two dudes can do against arguably one of the best wide receiver duos in the entire NFL. They were ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys played insane. And you hit like everything that I wrote. Like, it's hard for me as a quarterback to go in and watch the actual defense. Like when I'm breaking down Purdy, which we just released it, I'm like, I just want to see what Brock Purdy does. Like, I just want to see the reads offensively. What are the concepts? And then this is probably, I'm going to be honest, like this is probably one of the first games where I'm breaking down Brock for my quarterback breakdown and telestrating. And then I find myself halfway through the game going over to the defense and be like, wow, like I rarely watch corner now. Like I used to watch it all the time, but it just play after play, time after time, big down after big down, 3rd down, 4th down, whatever it was. My eyes did go to the corners. And that says a lot for a quarterback that just wants to break down quarterback play when you actually can go to the defensive side of the ball. And it was what got me excited about those two guys is obviously like 2 all-pros in my opinion. And L'Jarius Sneed, I mean, allowed 1 touchdown all year long, right? It was a Buffalo game. And he's going to get paid. Like, honestly, like it's a different show, but I just don't know if the Chiefs are going to be able to pay him and Chris Jones and Willie Gay. Like, I don't know how that will happen, but that's why I enjoyed watching him in a Chiefs uniform because Spags just said, go up there and beat the heck out of him. Go press him, get in their grill, like make them know that you're there. And the physicalness of that, not only that, but to be able to be like, I think, I don't know about you or anyone else out there listening. I think Brandon Ayuk, in my opinion, is a top 5 to 6 receiver in the NFL. Like he's
one of my favorite players in the league and has been for like 3 years. So good. This season and everyone realizing that this guy is that guy has been very fun for me.
Yeah. And I really do think he's a top 5 or 6 receiver in the NFL. Like what he's done and to put the clamps on him and to stay with, because Ayuk is super tall, super fast, excellent route runner, like all 3 of those. And for a guy like McDuffie or a guy like L'Jarius to stay with him all game long when they're playing 70% man coverage or whatever number, 60% man coverage a game, it just puts a lot of trust in those guys. And when you have guys like that, like, all right, we can play man. And I think that's why Spags ended up playing so much, but it was just really impressive from a standpoint of like, you know, it's impressive for me, at least when I'm watching and I'm watching Brock and I go across to the other side of the ball. I'm like, oh, let me just watch a couple snaps of these guys and just see their technique and ability and reach. And Trent McDuffie on the Deebo Samuel ball was like step for step, like it's cover 0. I'm just going to stay step for step with you. Like it was impressive to me.
I wonder what they're going to do when it comes to paying those guys, because they can free up a lot of money this season specifically if they want to. MVS has like no guaranteed money left on his deal.
I don't think MVS is going to be there.
They would save
Really
$12 million if they moved on from NVS. And then
I can't imagine a world.
Mahomes has a $36 million roster bonus next year. So if they just convert that to a signing bonus and they get his cap hit down from $58 million like it is right now to, what would it be, $25 million? That's another $30 million in space if you want to free it up. So we're talking about like potentially $50-60 million in cap space if they want it. It becomes a cash question, and this team has at times been a little bit hesitant to do that, but could they draft a receiver? Could they try to go back in the draft and find somebody else, or do you think they need an immediate option?
I think they need an immediate option. Like if you look at the entire roster of the Kansas
City,
just
won the Super Bowl with the guys they had.
Bro, I'm telling you right now, I guarantee it, because I know those guys, Veach and Andy Reid, are going to fix the freaking receiver room. Like, they got Rashee Rice, and I think that's an actual amazing pick. Like, I think he's going to be really good. You got to have a guy like T. Higgins, or a guy like, you got to have a vet. You got to draft a guy. You got Patrick Mahomes. You need to put the weapons around. They averaged 7 points less a game, and they made the Super Bowl because of their defense. And then finally, the last 4 games of the off or the postseason, the offense shows up. So I think you need a receiver. When I come to the Chris Jones questions, like for me, it's like other than Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, he's probably second or third on the team in terms of like leadership, like what it brings, the value of the locker room, getting guys in the same area and the same direction and the same mindset. Like he's that guy. Like you can't let go of him. And quite honestly, he's one of the better interior players to play.
Going back and watching the Super Bowl film, what is the number one takeaway that you had that you might not have had while watching the game live?
Well, there's 2. I got 2. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do 2. The first one is that Spags should be like the greatest coordinator of all time. Like just his performance this year, his performance in the game. I saw you tweet it out, and I didn't know the number was that high in percent of man coverage. I think it was 60% man coverage, completely opposite of what he did. And he just said, you know what? We're going to go up and we're going to press the hell out of these receivers. Ayuk, we're not going to let Kittle get off the ball. Now, CMC 8, right? He had 160 yards, 30 touches. That's fine. And his game plan was like, we're going to let CMC beat us, because when you're in man coverage, you're a little light in the box. If your receivers run off, they're looking at them, so you're not looking at the ball at all times. But that was the issue. And honestly, like when the Chiefs did play zone and played their too high look, that's when Brock had a lot of big plays, right? On all these in routes, on all these dagger routes. And as soon as they went back to man coverage, they just couldn't get off press. Like they couldn't get off press. You got to give credit to Spags. I mean, that was the number one thing probably that stood out to me, just his game plan and how aggressive he was and how he attacked the right side of that San Francisco 49ers offensive line, which has struggled. And they struggled again this in the Super Bowl. But I would say that Brock did a hell of a job navigating pressure and not getting sacked and not getting like having horrible losses, was able to get rid of the ball on a few occasions. So they overcame that, and just how Spags was able to free up Chris Jones. Like Chris Jones, in my opinion, had probably his best game of the year, like nonstop pressure. There's 2 plays that could have been touchdowns were it not for Chris Jones. And the third,
including that last drive. I mean, that last drive was a game sealing touchdown.
4. Yes.
They scored a touchdown on the drive where he blew up that kind of play action leak play down the right sideline to Debo in the shot zone. So that didn't end up becoming a huge moment in the game because the Niners scored a touchdown. But the second one he had, when he gets that penetration with that miscommunication between the backup right guard and the right tackle, that becomes a huge swing play in the game. So I'm totally with you on that. And I'm totally with you on the Spag stuff too. Because I expected them to play like they normally do. Because if you look at teams that have given the Niners problems this year, it's a lot of zone coverage behind the blitzes. The Ravens do that. The Vikings do that. The Bengals do that. So I thought, this is who the Chiefs are. Yeah. Like they'll be fine playing this way, because when you give Purdy that Rolodex of coverages, especially when you bring pressure, you're making him think a lot. You're making the game hard on him. There was a play late in the half on the Niners' 5th possession where they brought number 2, one of their backup corners, off the edge, and Purdy hits Ayuk on a little slant. And it was the last time all game, this was in the second quarter, that the Chiefs brought a blitz from depth and played zone behind it. It was the last one all game. So if you look at it, The Chiefs played man coverage 79% of the time
Jeez.
behind their blitzes in this game. 47% of their blitzes were cover 0, 32% were cover 1. In the regular season, they were 50% playing man coverage behind their blitzes. So you go from 50 to 79, which is a great changeup. And I'm sure he's comfortable with me saying this. I asked Steve Spagnuolo this week. I just texted him. I said, why did you guys do that? Like, why did you guys end up playing so much man behind the blitzes? And he said, we just wanted to close up the passing windows. He said, when we were giving them space, we just felt like there were plays to be made. And that's exactly what it was. And that is a lot of credit to him for the game plan and a lot of credit for those DBs and what they did behind it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was impressive because obviously when you sort of completely change who you are on offense, not completely change, but I mean, you had 30% more man pressure behind it. It can put a lot of stress on DBs, right? That's where the stress comes from, because if you fall down or if you slip or if you do something like Chris Conley motioned over in a 2x2 on a big third down to the number 3 receiver, and it was man coverage, and he toasted one of the DBs, I don't know who it was, and got open. And it's like, okay, like, are you sure you want to continue to play man coverage and pressure? This is why they're so good. And if that's where it puts the onus on these DBs to actually lock it up, because like I said, if you slip, you're done. If you get picked, you're done, and all this stuff. And I think that Brock and Kyle Shanahan had a really good plan for when they were zone pressuring, like, hey, just get the ball out, like quick hitters. Let's sight adjust. Let's throw her hot. Let's get into the right play. And I was surprised, I think, at how much scat protection, which is 5-man protection, that Kyle Shanahan put Brock Purdy in. Like they did it more than I probably thought, especially versus a team that brings double-edged pressure a lot, that plays cover 0 a lot. And I think that was the biggest part of the game, because I mean, Brock Purdy, I think, started 8 of 11, 104 yards or something, and was on fire, and then sort of hit a lull when he switched it up between really the second quarter and halfway through the fourth quarter. And then Brock started figuring some stuff out, was able to get it to OT. But it's just, it's what the Chiefs have won with all year long. Like, this is no difference. Like, Spags has been this way all year long. This has easily been Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' best defense that they've had. Spags just signed another extension, like probably one of the highest paid D coordinators. Like,
as he should be.
I don't know if and he should be. And honestly, like, some people and some coaches, they just don't want to be head coaches. They don't want to deal with all that crap. They don't want to deal with, they just want to call the defense. They want to be on the same team as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, get as many rings as you possibly want. And I just think that finally this year, Spags got the credit he deserves, because when he was with Mahomes and Mahomes was doing everything that Mahomes was doing, it just sort of like went by the wayside. But what they've done with Brett Veach drafting, what they've done putting this defense together, Spags calling this defense to everyone's strengths, I think that is the big story of the Super Bowl, in my opinion.